Greetings to all of you, and of course, welcome to this the People's Movement show. I'm certainly grateful for the opportunity to be able to sit here before you for us to discuss matters of national interest to Guyanese and probably those of national interest. As always, I am inclined to remind you that this forum represents one in which they are independent thinkers. We believe firmly that we have the right to think independently, but also we believe in the power of acting collectively. And that is why here at the People's Movement, we promote the concept, we promote the ideology that the people of this nation, Guyana, in South America, are supposed to be the ones who move the nation forward. This is not about a political group. It's about a group of Guyanese having mutual interest in the well-being of our country. We believe that our country should be governed properly. We believe in good governance. And more than anything else, we believe that those who are elected and selected to represent us are supposed to be held accountable. This evening, we're going to be joined by one who I know and courageous, fortunate that whenever it speaks to the, in many instances, to the women within our borders. We are joined by no other than the Member of Parliament, Coretta McDonald, but this evening she'll be acting in the capacity of or speaking, I should say, as the General Secretary of the Guyana Teachers Union. This union, this union would have stood and is still standing as a bastion, as a great strength, a wall of defense and courage in the face of what is happening to us here in Guyana. We know that the teachers would have been engaged in industrial action, as you would say, in strike action for more than 2 months. And out of that would have been born an agreement for there to be a revisiting of negotiations and proposals. What our focus this evening would be, or tonight would be, is on that of what has gotten us to this place. What has been the attitude of the administration, the PPP administration, towards the Guyana Teachers Union? What continues to be their actions? What has been the involvement of the Guyana Labor Board? I think that was it's called, because we have within our law a labor officer who should have been acting in the first instance. We had to have a mud in the court heard and all of that. Then suddenly I discovered that we have a labor officer who's prepared to come and do his job. So I would like for the head of the union, I should say the general secretary of the union, in the person of Ms. Coretta McDonald, Member of Parliament, to speak to us regarding the situation. What are things like for teachers? What is the general theme and thought process of our teachers across the nation? And what are things like within the confines of the union as relates to our teachers? Because trade unionism is extremely important to the survival of any society. So while you join me, please indicate whether you can hear us clearly, you can see me clearly, so that we can have this engagement. And if you don't mind, please share the broadcast. Those of you joining us via YouTube, thank you for being here. And while you're there, you can feel free to subscribe to my channel. You can feel free to like or hit the notification bell icon. And with that, whenever there's a posting, you would know that I'm live or there's some new content that's on my channel. Jenna is here with us as well. Brother Jenna, welcome to the broadcast. And you can feel free to greet our viewers if you're about to engage in this, what I hope to be very healthy and fruitful discussion.
Thank you, Will. Thanks. Shalom. Shalom to everyone. Salam. Peace be unto you.
You muted. You can unmute for me, please. Jenna, can you unmute for me if you hear me?
Yes, I unmute.
Good. And then you just sit back a bit so we can see you. We just seeing your eyes. Good. That's better. And we have our guest with us, of course, the one and only, and she'll be in frame in a moment. Um, Madam Member of Parliament and GTU's General Secretary. Greetings to you. Welcome to the People's Movement Show. And if you don't mind, please greet those who are viewing, and then we can jump right into the hot water, into the pond, and we can all swim around.
My brothers, good evening, and it's always a privilege to be talking with you. Good evening to your listening audience, and I'm trusting that this evening our discussions here they're going to be frank, and the persons are going to recognize exactly where we are at in this country, but most of all, what we should be doing as a people, not as Indians and blacks and Amerindians, what we should be doing as a people for the development of this country. Just bear with
Thank
me for
you.
now that I'm not going to be on video, but I'll be with you in not so long.
I look forward to it, and thank you so much. And I just love the way that you've introduced in reference to your comments this broadcast, because we're going to be frank. I believe, and I must put this out there for all to hear me and know clearly, please. It is not that I only speak with you from APNU AFC camp, as they want to call it. Those from the other side do not wish to engage in conversations. They refuse to be on our platforms. And I'll continue to say to them that you are all, not just one, any one of you, you're encouraged and you're invited to be here to join us at any time for any discussion you choose. You can choose the topic and I'll engage in discussions because we believe in good governance. And this is not about friendship, it's about the understanding. And I'm happy that our member of parliament, Mrs. Coretta McDonald, understands that, and she demonstrates it. She understands that the people are in a position to serve the population. And as a result of that, they are prepared to give us continuous reports and speak to us and engage with us at different forums. And for that, I'm certainly grateful. Brother Jenna, before Coretta comes, what's happening in Region 3? I see that you have some issues with the roads and so on. Just bring us up to speed with that, because it's atrocious as to what's happening in our country now regarding infrastructure work. Money is just being put in front of a fan and blown into the hands of those who are friends of the PPP cabal, and it just has to be spoken to. So you can go ahead and tell us what's happening in your end at Region 3.
Well, the same problem we have all over the country where you have contractors given a job who have no experience whatsoever. And for years, this has been under this current administration. Was before, since they came to office, they've been employing people who have no experience whatsoever in contracting. And so therefore what happens is that after they build a road, within 3 months the entire road collapses because they don't use the right kind of material and they haven't got the experience in actually building roads. So um, this is the this road that I highlighted there is an inner road where people live. That road has been repaired, as I know it, more than 5 times over the last period of 5 to 10 years. There are other roads and bridges that are in similar condition. Um, I must give credit where it's due because when I sent that video, another video of a road that is broken and full of potholes that were repaired less than 6 months, um, Minister Edgel called me when I sent him the video, and I was very surprised that within 2 days, when I visited the area, they had new contractors who had actually dug out all those potholes and where the road was constructed. And within a week, the road was repaired, completely repaired. In fact, the engineer showed me the defaults, the defect of the previous contractor that did the road, and he showed me that the material that they were supposed to put to make the road strong and lasting that those material were not there. Um, so I'm happy to, as we normally do, we speak the truth. We say we lay it where it is. And so I'm willing to actually credit Mr. Ezel. I saw in Berbice where he did the same thing to one of the contractors where he took him off. He had a contract to build the road since last year, August, and he didn't do anything. So I saw a video today where he dismissed that in front of the residents, that contractor, and they terminated his contract. Now, I think that we have to recognize, you and I and other or viewers and so on, that we are a government and we have the obligation to ensure that we have a good governance and that there's accountability for those people who are elected or appointed, whether they be contractors or whether they be officials of government, meaning permanent secretaries or officials who are employed by the administration. That we have a duty and responsibility to expose any form of corruption or skullduggery. And I think that we don't have to be ministers to actually get things done. We can't force those who are in office, who have been elected, to make them accountable. And I hope that people who are listening are viewing this our show today, that they take their life into their own hands, and it might be a small thing for them to take their camera and take out photographs of bad roads, bad trenches, bad bridges, you know, things that they think that are antisocial, and they can post them to us if they don't want themselves to they don't know where to post it to. They can post it to you and I, and we can then forward it with a comment and get the relevant people to do their job.
Thank you.
I'm hoping
Thank
that
you. Thank you for that update.
I'm hoping that when Sister Coretta comes on, that she will talk a bit more about the way in which parliamentarians ought to behave and how they should be able to make the administration accountable.
Well, she's here with us. So thank you for the update. I just want persons to know what's happening.
Is she there or she's about to join us? Because she said she had some problems. She was on the road. Nigel, you there?
The roads in Linden.
Huh?
I'm here. Tell me when you can hear me,
Yes.
please. This e-network's performing tonight. We have got at what they call the five corn. That's the most significant intersection in all of Linden. All of Linden. That road has got two huge craters. They're not even potholes anymore, just by the tire shop. And Edgel knows exactly what I'm talking about. That road comes under the purview of the Ministry of Works. It has not been repaired. For the independent story they had, the nonsense they did, I think that's McCrae, one of the PPP blackies. He got the job to fill the hole. And just as you said, Brother Jenner, within 1 month, that road is now in a mess. Within a month.
Um, I posted something today which caught the eyes of the minister, one of the ministers, I won't call his name, and he said that what I posted to say that they were involved in massive corruption. He said that's a very serious allegation. Now, if it's a serious allegation, why is he calling me? Why doesn't he say it's not true?
Who's
Because
that?
he himself is in corruption. He himself is involved in corruption and giving out contracts to people who are incapable of doing work and people who have had no experience. In fact, they have violated. I mean, it isn't a shameful thing for the United States of America administration to be accusing the Guyana government of encouraging corruption. And they're the ones who have pinpointed where the corruption is.
Right. Yeah,
Corruption
but
and
I
nepotism.
was saying I was saying that we have roads here in Linden. Um,
Yes.
David Rose Avenue, that's the main thoroughfare of the highway, is in disrepair. Worst, the road in the heart of the town by the market square. You can hardly pass there by the museum. There is no one who can tell me that they are unaware of these things. This is in the heart of our town. When there was town week, they fixed 7 or 8 roads within a week. And I know they would have done this to Lindeners. They left us hanging and on our own. So our sister's here with us.
So our sister's here with us. So our sister's here with us.
I'm have slight feedback from you.
And I'll try to back to you.
Just mute for me, please. Good. All right. She's here. And so we are ready to have this discussion, but we have tonight to talk about the matters relating to education, but I just wanted persons to be aware of what's happening around our communities. And we are in dire need of good governance. So welcome again. Thank you. And there she is in living colors, as they say. So welcome. Now, Madam Member of Parliament, you are certainly tonight with us in the capacity of that of the uh, GTU General Secretary, and just share with us where we are now, and then I would expect or hope that you can speak to the people of this nation and wherever they are about where do you foresee us headed in relation to this matter. You can unmute for me, please.
Sorry. Well, like I said earlier, I was in the midst of traffic, and that prevented me from getting on to you earlier and with the clarity that I'm now having. Like I would call you Nigel and Mr. Rahman. It's always, for me, selfless service to the people of this country. As a matter of fact, persons have entrusted me with confidence, and they expect me to conduct my duty as has been mandated by the Constitution of the Guyana Teachers Union. And they expect me to do that without fear or favor. They expect me to be their voice. And I can say to you, and I can say to all the persons who are viewing here, that I will do that until the last breath that I have, whether I'm General Secretary or not, because I recognize that there are lots and lots of persons who are willing to speak, but they are fearful that they're going to be victimized in one way or the other. There are lots and lots of persons who want to speak, but they are fearful that because of their race, because of where they live, all sorts of things can happen to them. But I am fearless. And I will do that, like I said, until the last breath that I have in me. But let me bring you closer home to what you just asked about. We would have had and everyone is aware that the GTU took industrial action last February, on the 6th of February. The background to this is we, the members of the GTU and its central executive, we would have submitted to this government a proposal dated 2019-2023. That proposal was submitted to the PPP's government when they came into office in August of 2020. And that would have been, I think it was on the 23rd or somewhere around there of August. That was our first meeting with the Minister of Education, who would have returned to that ministry. Subsequently, we had preambles with the permanent secretary, because the minister, of course, she's not the person who deals with that. And so we had a first meeting with the permanent secretary. Coming out of that meeting, we agreed that we are going to set timelines to have further meetings to discuss this proposal. Well, we're still awaiting those timelines. They never did materialize. And so from the level of the GTU, we would have written to this government umpteen times. We wrote from the president right down to the chief labor officer. They have all ignored our calls. They ignored the correspondence we sent to them. Whether it was in the form of email or hard copies, whether it was in the form of a WhatsApp message or a telephone call, they've ignored all of them. And so that back and forth correspondence, well, not back and forth, but correspondence going from the end of the GTU, saw us reaching to the stage where we wrote to the chief labor officer, indicating to him, look, we started having some talks. As a matter of fact, I should say that the last letter we wrote to the president, he responded by saying to us, he has appointed a minister in the form of Madam Gail Teixeira, who will take us through the paces. We had our first meeting with Gail Teixeira in 2023. That meeting, 2 meetings we had, they did not bear any fruit, because it has become a habit and a trend of the PPP, where they adore in having you going around in circles, and then they wait for something to happen, and then they pounce themselves on you like the saviors. And so that's what we had.
Permit me to interrupt you, please, because something has been said in reference to a timeline that I do not wish for our viewers to miss. You spoke to the fact that in August of 2020,
correct,
you engaged this administration. You sought to have an engagement with them regarding collective bargaining since August. You then said at Irfan Ali in 2023, 3 years later.
No. We sent correspondence to him in 2022. Early of 2022, after we recognized nothing was happening in more than a year.
And then you appointed Gail Teixeira to engage you in 2023.
2023.
So that's 3 years would have gone by before Irfan Ali took the time to even say, let someone from who he would have appointed engage in conversation. 3 years. I don't want to miss that. 3 whole years have passed.
And mind you, he was engaging other unions.
Thank you. Because I know within that time you had the Gaisuko people having issues every minute. And they didn't have to ask for anything sometimes that they got money.
As a matter of fact, in 2023, GAU's president, Sipal Narayan, who's also a member of parliament, just like myself, he said on May Day, I think it might have been either 12 or 20 collective bargaining agreements that they were able to sign. And the GTU, for the GTU, between 2020 up to this moment, we can't have one agreement signed.
So I remembered when you decided to take action, and before that you were telling me about Gail Teixeira and what Irfan Ali appointed her to. But I wanted the viewers to hear that it took 3 years, 3 whole years, before Irfan Ali, who's paid to be president, even decided to say to the GTU, I should say to the teachers across the country, that is, we're going to pay attention to your matter. Because this is not a GTU here. To all teachers, including those who they say they care about and are in their strongholds and whatever else it is. Listen, we're now going to engage you in this discussion. So Gail Teixeira was appointed, and can you tell us what happened as a result of that?
Well, that was the runaround meeting. The first meeting we had with her, she was present, Minister Manik Chand and Sonia Parag, who was then the Minister of Public Service. The 3 of them were present there, and all 3 of them appeared lost as to what this proposal was all about. So we had to be there, like the teachers now, taking them through the paces of that proposal. And we were promised at that meeting that with the information we just gave to them, having given them the history of the proposal, and we kind of defended why we were having some of the conditions that we had there in that proposal. They said they're going to get to us. We agreed on another date for a meeting, and they're going to talk with the Ministry of Finance, and they'll get to us. So by the next meeting, we should be setting off somewhere on that proposal. The following meeting was a circle meeting. And then we had the whole issue of the Madia file, the Madia Durham's file. So that took its toll on what is also an important issue. While we understand that the nation was in mourning, our teachers are important, our children are important, but that took center stage, and we agreed. The following meeting, which was the third meeting, we turned up there only to be told that they had no information to give to us. And so at that stage, you could understand what was happening with us and what was happening with our members. Because coming out of the first meeting, we said, okay, the second meeting, we'll make some progress, which is what they like to talk about. No progress was made. And then the third meeting was the one that dropped the gauntlet. We had no information to give to you. We're sorry, but we had no information to give to you. That ended all the talks or pre-talks, or what kind of, if you want to quote it, sham talks that we were supposed to have had then. We wrote to the Chief Labor Officer, highlighting and informing him about the proposal that was submitted since 2020 and how many times it was resubmitted. We also reminded him that we sent copies to you too. But we're here at this stage now where our talks have broken down, and we're asking you to intervene. We got no word from the Chief Labor Officer, none whatsoever. You know when he responded to us? He responded to us in February of this year, when we started indicating to them that we're going to take industrial action. Then we got a response from them. And you know what he said in one of his correspondence? He was requesting that we resend the letters we sent to him asking for conciliation, arbitration, because they had misplaced. Mind you,
oh my goodness,
they had misplaced the document. So he's asking for us to resend. We resent those documents via email and hard copies, making sure that our dispatch book was there for them to sign. So we can't have the document misplaced again. Coming out of that, we were told that as far as he's concerned, the Ministry of Education and the GTU, we are in talks, and he doesn't see any need to accede to the request that we are making. And that led to the industrial action we took on February 6th. That entire period together covers 75 days. But like you would know, and our viewers would know, that there was one period when we stopped the industrial action and we returned to school, because by then we engaged the courts, and that procedure took a little time. And then we had the ruling in April. We had the ruling. Between that time, this is what the Ministry of Education did. One, the Minister of Labor took a position, and he did not take the position of the workers. He took the position of his government. And you know what he did? He went on national television to threaten teachers and to say to the GTU that the strike is illegal, and that teachers who are going to embark on this illegal act, they will face penalties. And that is, they're going to face salary cuts and whatever else. That's what he did. The Chief Labor Officer also indicated to us that our strike is illegal. The Minister of Education was on national television lambasting the GTU. Mr. Jagdio, because I'm not going to call him Vice President, Mr. Jagdio took to his Thursday cuss-out session, and he said what he didn't remember to say, he didn't say, but he gave the GTU a good licking. He went as far as to talk about the whole issue got very personal, where Coretta McDonald became the target. Not the teachers issue. Coretta McDonald became the target. But you know what I want to say this. From as long as I could remember, GAU, its president would have served as president and as a parliamentarian. They took industrial action during the coalitions period. They took industrial action before 2015, May 2015. They took industrial action after that. But I never one day heard Mr. Jagdeo or the Minister of
Mhm.
Labor lambasting them. I never heard them getting personal with any of the officers of GAU. But with the GTU, it was about
And that,
Coretta McDonald and Coretta McDonald and Coretta McDonald, as if to say
and
Coretta
permit me,
McDonald is
right.
is the GTU.
So, and I want to
Yes,
speak to that because you've gotten to a very important aspect of this conversation, and we'll rewind and progress. Um, the president of GAU, of the Guyana, was it Allied Workers Union? I think that's it, Agricultural Workers Union,
agricultural
Agricultural
workers.
Workers Union.
Mhm.
Right. He is a member of parliament as we speak, is he not?
Just like me. Before
Okay.
him,
So
we had Kamal Chan before him,
Kamal Chan, correct.
who
Exactly.
served
Now
as a member of
Jagdeo
parliament when they were in government, as well as when they were in opposition.
and opposition. Now Jagdeo is saying that because of your presence in AFC or APNU AFC coalition, and you're being in the House of Assembly as a member of parliament, the GTU is tainted because you're there, and this is the whole political game you're playing. Now,
Mhm.
when I saw the GAU president boasting, and he was making a mockery, as a matter of fact, and he
Yes.
said, "Listen, we have 23 agreements signed, so essentially he doesn't know what the GTU is doing because they get what they want." Jagdeo, being the typical hypocrite, and I can call him that because I'm not a member of parliament, I owe him no degree of honor. Did not even have the courtesy to say, "Well, listen, what I said about Coretta McDonald is really uncalled for because in my camp it's the same thing." He wouldn't do that.
The
But he
man.
has not even had the decency to say that this is the reason why the GTU, the teachers of this country, have not been engaged in a manner that speaks to them even having 2 or 3 agreements signed over the past 4 years or 3 years. Now, we have got a man who's paid to be Minister of Labor in Joseph Hamilton and a
Mhm.
labor officer. And these people are well aware of the labor laws of this country.
Well aware.
Now, let's speak to that. How can they deem your strike action to be illegal if, according to the laws of the country, collective bargaining, that's a law,
Mm-hmm.
is
Mm-hmm.
mandated by law?
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, if you have a grievance as the employees and you represent the employees, you have right to say to the employer, we have a problem. We need to have a conversation. That conversation is not being fruitful. Then you appeal to the labor officer to say, and I didn't even know that part as it should have been ventilated in the media as you're saying it here now. Listen, we want to have a grievance heard because we have a problem. The labor officer did not engage you again for an extended period of time. And that led to your saying, well, all right, this is it. We headed to the road. How could Joe Hamilton and Priya Malik Chan allow Jagdeo now to say that your actions were illegal? Because they've said it a lot. And I want the people to hear from you in reference to your response to that statement that your action is illegal. Based on what?
All right, before we go there, let me back up. In 2018, the very Coretta McDonald, the Jagdeo wanted to know in 2024 how she got her Lexus. The very same Jagdeo in 2018, when I led the teachers through that period of industrial action,
Mm-hmm.
Jagdeo was there and he's on record saying Granger must stop acting like a ceremonial president. He must go out there and
Right.
meet the teachers. He must talk to the teachers union. The teachers strike is legal because the teachers have real issues. The same man, Jagdeo, he went further to say that the Granger's government should cut on rental, cut on dietary, cut on traveling, and use those monies to pay the teachers. But in 2024, or from August 2020 to 2024, February and onwards, it's that whole picture has changed. Mind you, Coretta McDonald was complimented for her stance in
Right.
2018. Priya Manikchand was on her Facebook page every other day, chastising Nicolette Henry about the wrongs she's doing to teachers. And here it is, the very Priya Manikchand. He's now standing to say that the teachers were wrong and they were misled by their union executive. You notice the very Joe Hamilton was there. But these people are fork-tongued, and that's what I want our viewers to understand. That they have
Correct.
no sincerity with what they say, and they have no permanent friends, they have permanent interest. As long as it will
Yes.
boost their interest, that's good with them. Jagdeo went further to say that, oh, the APNU AFC, they are feeling that if they concede to the teachers and talk with the teachers and give them what they want, it will be a win for the PPP. As a man thinketh, so is he.
So
And
is he.
so the same notion he's using this time around, if they were to give in to the teachers, then it will be a win for the APNU AFC. Wicked people sitting in
Yes.
high places.
Yeah. Now,
Now, our children,
you,
our children were out of school for 75 days. And these are the people who talk about because we care, because
right.
we love, service
And a
to the
caring
people,
government.
service to the nation, progress. These are the very people who talk about it. And here it is, our children, and mind you, the children who are at home are children of the ordinary Guyanese people, because the
Correct.
ministers, most of them, their children were at private schools. And
Private
those whose
schools.
children were not at private schools, they were at Queen's College, Bishops, St. Stanislaus, St. Joseph's. They were attending those schools. So they were in school. But my child and your child and our children, they were at home, and we were making out the best way we can to give them some exercise to do during the day while they were at home. And so that's the
Thank
kind of thing that we have to stand up against. We can't hear you preach one Guyana, but every time I tell them that we have 3 and 4 Guyanas, they get very upset. But you can't preach
yeah.
one Guyana and everyone is not being treated equally. Let's look at what is happening.
Yeah.
Let me slide off a little. Let's look at what is happening in the school system. The teachers and this, let's Dolphin Secondary, Lodge Secondary, they're not treated the same way the teachers and
No.
the people are treated, and the students are treated at Queen's College and at Bishops and at Saints. Mackenzie High, a teacher had to fall there and break her hand and her foot so that they can fix a stairway, one single stairway, putting a shed on that stairway. A teacher had to be injured. And these are the people who talk about because we care. And when you have to highlight these issues, you are anti-government. Well, I will continue to be anti-government all the time, because you know, one of the facts they can't take from me is that Coretta McDonald stands on principles. And my government was in power in 2018, and I said, no way,
And you
teachers are
stood.
not going to be treated as second-class citizens in this country. They got to be treated as first-class citizens. And
Now
so,
that's so profound. That's so profound in reference to what you're saying, because I do recall in 2018, I was home. I remigrated about 2 or 3 years before that, and I remember seeing you. Actually, I was out there at some point, seeing you standing there, and it was really, really to me, a very profound statement, because for you to be standing out in public in 2018 while APNU AFC was what they call in power speaks volumes. And you weren't standing there to compliment Nicolette Henry, who was then Minister of Education. You were saying, no, the teachers deserve better. And I remember that. And I remembered how Jagdir and Priya were certainly enjoying what I think they felt had been a moment to shine for them, not knowing that in the future, the same person would be standing to say, no, this is not going to work this time. And for me, this time is worse because they refused to even engage you in a conversation for years, a conversation, I should say, of merit or value. But here's my other question for you. I observed, and I was a part of this last strike action. And as a parent, I stood with the teachers, I stood with the union because I believe that my child deserves the best. I don't believe in any 1% business and creme de la creme. I don't go for that. I took my daughter out of QC for the same reason. You're not going to be having the thought process that says you are better than anybody else. And I mean that. Every school in this country must be treated as though it belongs to the Guyanese people, and our children must have the best access to education across the board. However, I observed when you, in this last strike action here, Jagvir started saying it's political. And you don't have to, of course, answer if you don't choose to, but from my observation, I remembered when he said it's political, and I saw many members of parliament and stuff started to back off, and I was upset about it. So I hadn't a chance to speak to you publicly, and I do so now. And you can engage me in this. Let's have a discussion on this. I'm of the view, and I said yes, it's political, and I spoke the context in which I said it. If PPP chose to disengage and not make a commitment to our teachers and to the union, then the PPP made a political decision.
That's correct.
If Irfan said Tashir will engage in a conversation and she doesn't engage in conversation, that's a political decision. If the Minister of Labor refuses to engage you in a sensible conversation, that's a political decision. Yep. So your response should be political. But when I began to see the what I call the withdrawal of some members of parliament, I became concerned. You don't have to speak for them. I just want you to share with me what are the views of the teachers, if you can, and what message does that send? Does Jagvir control the opposition's actions? Because once it says political, people start backing away. I saw that. I paid careful attention to it. And they left the teachers and you to stand because they don't want to make it political. I'm not too accepting of that. Can you speak to that, please?
Well, what I can say to you is that it was in 2018, Jagvir and his cabal, they wanted to come out and give support to the teachers. They wanted to join the teachers in 2018. They offered to bring a whole lot of people out there. And I remember we were saying to parents that this issue is a teacher's issue and an issue for parents, not an issue for the politicians. We don't want them to come out there to cloud our message. This is our message. And I think the opposition took that same position to say, let the teachers do what they have to do. We will give them the support by communicating with maybe the Minister of Labor and the Minister of Local Government and the shadow for local government, the opposition leader to the president, and in that way. And so when you saw little bits of MPs from the opposition side out there, I think maybe that's the position they took as well, that the teachers were going to fight their battles on the outside there, and they were probably, behind the scenes to give whatever support, maybe to drop off water, like so many other people would have done, give water to the teachers across the country, assist them with some shade, umbrellas, and that kind of thing. But the issue really was the issue for the teachers and the parents. Mind you, some of our MPs came out there because they said, I'm out here as a parent. I am here as a parent.
Right.
But of course, the PPP, they don't know how to separate powers. And so once you're out there, then they would make a big issue out of that. I need to let you know that we had Gary Best, retired Army Chief Gary Best, out there one day, and I'm sure persons would have seen how Jagvir and the others made a big issue out of that, because I remember Gary Best, he's Dr. now, Dr. Gary Best, saying this issue has got to be a political one. It is political because it's a political decision that was taken to have the teachers out on the streets here. They caused the teachers to be out on the streets. But of course, they know how to flip the coin and to throw it out there to say, look, you see what I'm telling y'all? Look how they got all of them. Look, all of them out there supporting them. But
Yeah,
the and that's
go
the
ahead.
kind of distraction that the PPP use all the time. The kinds of
But it,
distraction to take away from the message.
yeah, but although that's the case, my view, and I'm happy we can have such a healthy discussion. Maybe Jaglia could come and we can have this discussion too. Because again, I see it. My platform is open to them all. I don't know why they're afraid to come here. But my conviction is this. I saw when the PPP chose to launch an aggressive assault against teachers. Now, we have to remember that political leaders are supposed to be, I should say, stronger than the average citizen. So when they observe that there's an attack being launched against trade unionism, it wasn't just G2 anymore. When they sought to, for example, say this, we're not going to remit any dues to you, that we cut your due supply, but they want to kill the union. Even the
Well,
judge spoke to
I
that.
will
I
come
saw
to
the
that.
PPP trying to kill the union.
Mhm.
That's when I believe that because it's now an assault in reference to the constitutional right of the union members and the trade unions in general, that's where I believe that the representatives in the House of Assembly should have come forward to say, no, we are not defending teachers here. This is now about trade unionism being attacked by this cabal, and they intend to destroy the GTU. If Jagdeo had his way, he would have, and you know that, we know that, he would have
Mhm.
annihilated the GTU up until, you don't even exist right now, because that's what he wanted to do. So I
Mhm.
don't believe, and this is just my firm conviction, that Jagdeo should have the call to say it's political and people should just respond to that in that manner. Yes, it's political. Like with me, I'm talking to you now. He may say, "Well, you see, London is there." See, I don't care. The point is, Jagdeo will never have the privilege. He doesn't have the sense to say anything to me or about me that make me change my course of action. He doesn't have the privilege.
Mhm.
Ali worse. Okay. So was there any point when you saw a direct attack being launched, not against the GTU per se here, in reference to the trade unionism in general in Guyana? Because we get to the response you got from other trade unions as well. Did you see that at any point during this strike action, where they attacked trade unionism in general?
Of course, um, the GPSU, they have the government in courts as we speak. Um, and the fact that they sought to silence the GTU, that in itself was a clear finger being pointed at all the other trade unions, except for GAU,
Gao.
NAFI, Guyana Labor Union, and maybe the CCW, except for those four who are part of FITAB. All the other trade unions, that was a finger pointing to them to say, you stand up, decide to stand up next. You'll see what we do to you. But I'm happy that you brought out before I did the issue of the cutting of the Jews. As soon as we decided that we were going to take industrial action and we wrote to the minister, we wrote to the PS, and we wrote to Labor, the permanent secretary, Ministry of Education, responded to say, with immediate effect, they will stop the deduction of the Jew and remittance of the Jews with immediate effect. They didn't say, well, if you go, or
Right.
tomorrow or next week. They said with immediate effect. So that in itself was a threat to trade unionism in this country. And you know what is appalling? It is appalling that we have GAU, CCW, NACI, the Guyana Labor Union, not a single
Mhm.
word, not a single word from these folks. And these are the folks who would go to the ILO convention, to the ILO conference, and they would speak gloriously about workers and how workers are being treated and how much progress and how satisfied workers are when they
Wow.
stand at those forums, those international forums. The same Minister of Labor would go there when he didn't go this year. But they would go to these international forums, they would go to these human rights conferences and so on, and speak gloriously about what the progress of the trade union movement and how much we have evolved. But the wickedness they sit here and allow, it's alarming. But um, there's a time and there's a place for everything under the sun. And
There is.
I want to say that our teachers, they have felt so demoralized. But I can say to you though, that they're not down. They have
Right.
been able to gather more strength. Even while all the distractions were being posted out there, our teachers are stronger than ever at this point. Of course, they try to tell them, don't bother with your general secretary. She carrying a political swing. And you could imagine the chief education officer, Saddam Hussein, who was not appointed based on a vacancy that was published and an interviewing process or a shortlisting. Saddam Hussein, who was selected as a political appointee, he would have the notion to say, oh, Coretta McDonald is doing this because she wants to be re-elected to the central executive of the People's National Congress. You see how low these people could get? That's how they think. That's their mentality. But it wasn't okay for him to write all those memos that he was writing because he wants to keep the contract, the big fancy contract that he has, But
Right.
that's the kind of dual functions that they have. They kind of two sometimes the words that I want to use to describe these people again.
And I can certainly understand that. So for me, I believe that it should have been a response from the Trade Union Congress and others, even GPSU, because once I saw the trade unions, you were being attacked in a manner that spoke to you, to the PPC, to wipe you out. I believe there should have been greater collaboration and also affiliation associations publicly and say, listen, we're coming out here to fight with the teachers, and now we're going to join. Because in my view, looking back on the 75 days, it was a very, very critical point. Yet again, an opportunity for this cabal to be brought to their knees by the trade unions in Guyana, by the trade unions. Exactly. Because the GTU, mainly females, by the way, in reference to membership, you stood on the road for 75, you weren't afraid. You stood up there for 60 plus days and say, listen, we prepare to fight. And I saw that opportunity to bring this cabal to their knees to say to them, you will do what is right by workers across the board. And that was a missed opportunity. What are your views on that? As I said, if you don't want to chastise the union comrades, fine, but I just have the right to tell you how I feel. And first have the discussion, please.
And so you're absolutely right. But I must commend the General Secretary of the Guyana Trades Union Congress. He was out there, Mr. Lewis. We had the President, Norris Witter, he was there. We had a few other members from the executive of the Guyana Trades Union Congress who were out there. Of course, we had the correspondents in support of us coming from the GPSU. But like you said, we needed more. We needed to see more, like the folks would say, we needed to see more bodies out there. We needed to have the nurses.
I can hear you.
The nurses wanted to join us, but of course they couldn't openly come out there in their uniforms like they wanted to because their union was not on board. But you know what? Many of them came out there in disguise as parents because they're all parents. But if we had the nurses, the office assistants, the clerks, the supervisors, the accountants, if we had them out there, then that would have sent a strong message to this government, letting them know that while the teachers are having their issues, we are affected because we are parents and our children's education is important. But while I'm saying that, let me underline this one. This government does not believe in educating people. They believe in keeping you at a level where they can control you. And so while we would think that education ought to be priority for them, it is not priority for them. It's priority for the cabal. that elite group, it's priority for them. Because when you look at what is happening in this country, when you look at the universities that some of these ministers' children are going to, as against where they're sending lots and lots of our teachers and other public servants to Jade and all kinds of university on this gold program, it's alarming. It's alarming. But coming back
Right.
to the strike issue, the judge in his wisdom ruled against this government, highlighting to them all their faults. And he said that no teacher should be victimized, there should be no loss of pay, and that the Jews should be remitted to the union, because he saw this as the government's blatant attempt to kill the union, because they know that that is the only way the union is able to receive financial funding. And that was a direct attack on the union. You know what this government did? Rather than
Right.
restoring or reinstating the deduction of the Jews, the Attorney General said that they will appeal that decision. And that there for me and for the teachers of this country, it was a clear message that we are at war with you. Who dare you to stand up to us? And so, two things they want to do. They want to, one, cut the teachers' pay, and two, they want to stop the deduction of the Jews. The judge went further to say, this was no ordinary arrangement between you and the GTU. This was an arrangement that you had standing for
Yes.
years. And for you to abruptly stop it without even saying to them anything, what you should have done is to give them time to put other systems in place, but you didn't do that. Even that order from the court, it is still being ignored. And again, these are the
Correct.
people who talk about because we care. Because we care, you're giving the parents $45,000. And the audacity in this whole thing where Barrett Jagdio would sit on this program to talk about, he's going to give they're considering e-schooling, and they're going to give $700,000 to each parent. Well, I don't know how these things can happen, because if you can't pay 15,000 teachers, I don't know how you giving $700,000 to each child. We have over 150,000 learners across the country, and it's probably even more now. You can't give 15,000, 14,000 something teachers. You can't give them a 25% salary increase, but you're opting and you're considering e-learning, and you're going to give $700,000 per parent, per child. And so parents can consider whether they want to do e-learning at home, or whether they want to send their child or their children to private schools. You see, these people are so blatant and so damn liared and manipulative and so destructive and always like to misinform people. But you know what? They have recognized that the ordinary man, he's under a lot of pressure. And so when you throw these numbers out at them, they would buy into you, and they would stop seeing the foolishness that you're doing, and they would buy into you. But I'm thankful that lots and lots of our citizens across this country, they're seeing right through Jagdio with that nonsense with the $700,000 per child. Because if you can't give teachers an increase, you can't give other public servants an increase, how are you sustaining $700,000 per child? What is this $700,000 for? Is it per year? Is it what? What is it? But that's the kind of manipulative strategies that these people use sometimes to distract persons from the real issues.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that, Brother Jinnah. You've heard from our Ghana Teachers Union's General Secretary. You yourself would have studied trade unionism. What just share with us your views on the response that we got when in reference to this whole strike action? How critical would have been the role of other unions, and not in just going to the street to say we're here. My view is that they should have called for strike action. I think GPS, you tried it to say, listen, you have 72 hours to respond. If you don't respond, we take action. That's the kind of pressure you should have had, because they had 75 days to frame a system and a network of action that would have
Mm-hmm.
crushed this cabal. I know what would have happened, because they can't even 50% of the workforce or 40% of the workforce in public service being off the job. So do you know what Europe used in that, as one who would have studied trade unionism and
But
was extensively with
before
that?
Brother Gina
Go
goes
ahead.
there, let me say to you that they could not even deal with the teachers not being in school, because if you know, Nigel, you would know all of the ministries' plans, all everything that they had to cancel it. And you saw all this the memos coming from the CEO, continuous assessment, this, that, everything was thrown off the card for them. So I don't know how they would have been able to deal with 25% of the workforce off. And again, we failed to do what we were supposed to do.
Exactly. Exactly.
Let me, let me, I think it's useful to put on record that the teachers union has come out as the leading force in this country to represent the working people and the underprivileged in this country. We saw that what they did during the COVID-19 imposition, and you and I were on some of these demonstrations, and they were adamant. They were
Mhm.
people who were prepared to fight not only for themselves, but for the rest of the working people in this country. And they need to be commended, and particularly their General Secretary, Sister Coretta McDonald. She stood very strong. I saw her on many occasions. She's a fighter. She's a fireball. And I wish she can retain that strength and courage to fight. Because there's a lot of fight more to come. A lot of fight
Mhm.
more to come. I
Mhm.
had a conversation with her today. Sister Coretta, our program is one where we don't try to disagree with each other. We air our views and opinion. And the reason for that is because we want to set a new political culture. Now, politics is about the governance. It's about governance. Economics is the base. Politics is the superstructure. So, particularly the teachers are fighting a political battle, whether they like it or not,
Mhm.
because teachers are paid by the state, not by a private sector organization. They're paid by the state. And as such, they come under the rules and regulations and the laws of this country. That is our constitution. And this administration, unfortunately, have violated all the rules and regulations and the constitution of this country by denying people the right to speak, the right to assemble, and the right to strike, which is an important element in our democracy, the right to strike. And you made mention of the judge. I think this judge will go down in history
Mhm.
as a representative of justice, fairness. I don't know where he stands politically, but I think that if we have more just judges like him in this country, Guyana will be a better place. And I want to say this because I've been studying his ruling, and it doesn't matter what Nandalal does in trying to appeal this case, it will end up in the Caribbean Court of Justice, and it will be a landmark victory not only for the teachers but also for all working class people and trade unions in this country. Because if you 100 and something pages of his judgment, when you read it, every single sentence or paragraph makes sense, quoting the law and referring to other laws in the world. So the teachers are leading the strike. The issue here we have, Brother Nigel and Sister Coretta, is this. is that the trade union movement is a disunited force. It's disunited and disorganized. Because imagine, you had teachers coming out for more than 70 days, and the, the largest union in this country, the Public Service Union, nowhere to be seen on the picket line, and have not issued a public statement of solidarity for those teachers who have been on the street. So we have a very serious problem with the trade unions in this country, that they don't understand the need for solidarity. They don't understand the history of trade unionism. That is the problem we have, and we have to fix that situation. And let us say it publicly. You have people who are leaders of the trade union who are not representing the interests of their members. Not only the interests of their members, but the general interests of the working class in this country. I want to add to this what you call the this insult to injury by labeling Sister Coretta McDonald as being a member of parliament. Well, let me remind people, the PPP has always had its, the GAU has always had its leaders as the member of parliament. I remember Boise Ramkaran, the father of Ralph Ramkaran, who was Speaker in the House of Parliament, that he was not only a member of Parliament at the time, but he was deputy leader of the PPP. Then you had Maki Hamid, who was General Secretary. At that time, I was Assistant General Secretary of the Cane Farmers Association, and I was an activist of the PPP. So I know I'm not telling you what I read from books, I'm telling you my history, which is part of that activity. So Maki Hamid was always, both of them were members of parliament representing the PPP, and they were holding leading positions in the General Workers Union, the GAU, Sugar Workers Union. But I know we are beating for time, and we need to have Sister Coretta here again, because we need to discuss this politics, because we can't get we are coming up to the next election, and I suspect that an election will be called and might caught us with our pants down, literally. So we need to have a discussion about the future of our country and who are going to 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 win at the next election. There has to be a serious discussion, because
Yeah.
you're going to have a recurrence of what happened to the teachers and what is happening to them now, because they have not resolved that problem. They have not resolved the problem of pay. In fact, they had to make a compromise, as I see it, because of the crisis that we find ourselves in. Now, could you imagine? I'm reading here from 133 days towards freedom in Guyana, when that first government, PPP government, was elected in 1953. And you know who was the, let me remind our viewers, I think the two of you know, the education minister was Mr. Forbes Burnham.
Mm-hmm.
And and if you allow me some time, time doesn't allow us, I will read what he said about education. In fact, if we were to today implement what the PPP said, what the education minister said then in 1953, if we were to implement that manifesto on education, we wouldn't have any problem. But you see, some people in the PPP like to, I don't think those people who are leaders of the PPP represent the PPP. They do not represent the original PPP. And that's where our problem is. And I must
Right.
say too, that some of the leaders in the PNC do not represent the views and opinion and program and policy of Forbes
Burnham.
Burnham. We need to stop that. I don't know, Comrade, if I have to be careful with that word, because the PNC woman told me I shouldn't call her comrade. So I don't know if you object to that too. But we have to discuss these things. Now, the other point I was going to raise before we bring back Sister Coretta is that the uh, the need to reorganize the trade union movement, because there are people who are leading the trade unions who think they have a job for life, and we cannot have that. So I
That's
want
good.
us to discuss what you think about that.
So you were throwing that question at me, you're saying?
He surely is.
Let me be honest with you. Um, Persons must be willing and ready to accept that I've come this far and I need to take a step aside. I shouldn't be the one to pinpointing anyone and to calling on anyone to step aside or to step down. Persons should know when they would have given and it's time to allow others to take the lead. And it's only when we have those kinds of things happening. You see, we talk all the time about succession planning and succession planning and succession planning. And it doesn't only happen in the trade union movement, it happens in many, many organizations. As a matter of fact, we all know who the real president of this country is. So that's the kind of dinosaur game we have playing out in this country in every sector. But I want to say to us, we as a movement, as a trade union movement, we must remember where we came from. As a
Right.
matter of fact, it was out of the trade union movement that national politics was birthed. And so
Correct.
we as a trade union movement should never allow the politicians to lead the path for us. We should be the ones dictating how they ought to operate. We should be the ones holding them accountable and responsible for everything that they do and what they don't do. You see, we have become so compromised that it's difficult for us to hold the politicians accountable because we want to have maybe a duty free here, or we want to sit on this board and that board and the other board. You know how it is? And because of those simple, those little things that we throw all our values away for, our trade union movement is now porous. And we've got to change that. And we can only change that with persons who are cemented in the principles of trade unionism. We all know that LFS Barnum was president of the Guyana Labor Union. We all know that. And then he moved on. And we know where Chetty Jagan came from with regards to the Guyana Agricultural Workers Union. And so the outside of our trade union leaders, our just come, let me call it our just come politicians who don't understand the history of trade unionism and the history of this country and how trade unionism was used to bring us to where we're at today, because they don't understand it or they play forget conveniently. They try to use the trade union movement, or they try to use their influence to shut out us who are within the trade union movement, who decide that we're going to stand up to them when they cannot do what they're supposed to do for our people. And so, like you said, Brother Rahman, that's another conversation that we're going to have to have.
Yeah.
And we need to do that like tomorrow, because every day we allow to pass, it emboldens the PPP government and they feel that they can do whatever they want to do. And I'm saying this to say, to say to you, my experience in Parliament, I thought Parliament was a place of serious business. But Parliament isn't a place of serious business anymore. It's a place where you continue to oppress the entire nation. not only the opposition members, but the entire nation. Because when you have people like Charles Ramson and Priya Manikchand and others who would stand and say in Parliament, y'all can have your say, you can say how much you want, but we will have our way, then you understand
Right.
that Parliament has become what Javier said it is, a circus. And that's their circus where they come to display their ignorance. And when you have a speaker who doesn't see anything wrong with his actions and what he allows and what he disallows in Parliament, then we seriously have to have another conversation, and a serious one at that too, so that the people of this country must understand that we have the power, and that's what we have to let them know. And we have to remind them, you have the power in your hands to dictate and to direct the politicians in this country on how they must operate. When we look at what's happening in education, and I notice we've diverted from the teachers' strike, but let me
That's
say
fine.
quickly, the teachers' strike is now officially over, and there are several reasons that would have caused us to come that way. The Ghana Teachers Union, we were planning on one angle when our teachers would return to school, but wickedness would have it that this government, they were planning to take the teachers' names off the payroll. As a matter of fact, they were planning to close school
Already.
prematurely.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as a union, we had to be responsible and to do what is responsible. Because to have pay cuts is one thing, where you still have some monies in your hand. But you know, when your name is taken off the payroll, it would take you a month, 2 months, 3 months. And to have thousands of teachers across this school, not being across this country, sorry, not being able to access finances, then you know what can happen there. And so we had to make a very, very serious and responsible decision to have our teachers return to school, to have the strike being called off, and to return to the table. So we're at the table now, and we're looking at not the 2019-2023 document that we were holding on to, but we have submitted a new document to the Ministry of Education, and by extension the government, a 2024-2026 document. Of course, we are not going to talk much about that document, but that's the document on the table as is. And we've had one meeting so far. This next meeting will be on Thursday of this week. But let me say that this government, when you look at what is happening in education, and let me zero in on this, we've seen coming from 2020 to now, teachers as low as AMs, or might be lower than that, who have been seconded from their schools. These are selected teachers, these are not teachers who would have given outstanding service or who have been giving outstanding services. Teachers who will do our bidding. They have been seconded from their schools to the departments of education to perform duties as education officers. That's what we have. And so you have AMs who are going into schools to supervise head teachers. And these persons are being paid their salaries and they're receiving stipends.
Oh my goodness.
We have education officers who are they are an education officer, let's say a regional education officer, but that officer is now being removed from the region that he or she would have been appointed to or assigned to, and they are now moving to central ministry to perform duties as maybe an assistant chief education officer, something like that, or somewhere in that region. And they're now being given an additional stipend to perform those duties. Now, my thing is, and this should be of concern to us, if we have the vacancies, why not publish those vacancies and have them filled? Why do you want to pay one person 2 times? And so we've created that army there where you have all these teachers being seconded from school. We're already short of staff in many of our schools, but we are still seconding loads and loads of teachers from their schools and putting them at the office to function as education officers. And then we have appointed education officers who are performing other duties. And so you have them being given a stipend to perform those duties as well as they receive their salaries. This is what the Ministry of Education, this is what this government believe in. They believe that they can always have you there acting and acting and acting so that they can hold that over your head. Now, many of these persons who they are seconding to the departments of education, they themselves don't even know what they're about. And so some of them are scared to go into some schools to offer any form of supervision. Some of them don't even know what to say to the head teachers
I
because
don't know. Exactly.
these are head teachers who have been serving for donkey years as education, as head teachers, so they know what they're about. So when these officers come to tell them all kinds of crazy things, some of these head teachers would put them to their places. But this is the state of education in this country. We have the school board secretariat. Well, that's a whole story by itself. And Nigel, I know that you know that. That's a
Yeah.
whole story by itself.
Oh, yes.
Who not friend, who not family, who's not a favorite, they all end up there. And so, in terms of managing the education sector, it's a whole set of newies, a whole set of persons who will say yes, 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 because they want to be in good company. And that's what we have happening in the education sector. And you've seen, we just had the grade 6 results being released. And you saw all the pomp and everything, all the big decoration and so on, and the venue where this is going to be announced, only to recognize in an hour or two after that there were wrong scores, incorrect additions, so the totals were incorrect, placement of learners were incorrect, and not a word of apology from the Ministry of Education, none whatsoever. I guess they're too embarrassed to say that. But you know how much millions was plugged into marking those papers? How much millions was plugged into having CXC supervise whatever was happening? There are millions and millions of dollars.
Right.
Long ago, you remember, we happened to have CXC, and mind you, I am not questioning the capability of CXC or CSEC and its administration, but we hadn't that long ago. We were having our regular teachers who were marking those scripts, and they were supervised by responsible persons who knew what to do. Now we're plugging millions of dollars, but we're still getting nonsense. The same thing is happening in the school system, where we're plugging millions of dollars into printing textbooks, and you get incorrect information on those texts being printed in those textbooks, incorrect information on the exercise books that they attempted to publish, that they published to give to students. And so it's no longer about what it's worth, but it's about me. It's about I and the pomp and scene that I could come out there and give. Oh, as Minister of Education, under my stewardship, the students and the learners across this country, they received exercise books with wrong information.
Right.
And so very often I have to remind the Minister of Education that maybe she did not attend school in this country, because I remember going to school and there were textbooks. There were exercise books with Burnham's picture printed on the front page. When I went to school, I had textbooks that were given to me. I had Junior English Revised Students Companion First Aid. Now parents have to buy those. You can't get those from the Ministry of Education. So I don't know what is this big pomp and scene. But again, it's not about what I can do in terms of service, but it's the pomp and scene that we do this, we do that, we do the other. I remember we never had a fire in this country that claimed the life, 20 lives, but we had it just recently. I remember we hadn't these fires that burning schools completely.
but we're having it now. And I remember we had schools that were constructed with a little play area. Now our children don't have play area in their schools. The schools are all congested and they're choked into areas where the children gotta leave the compound to go somewhere else if they want to do a session, a physical education session in you know. And so there again, there is no serious thought being given to what is supposed to be done. But the whole idea is, look what we did. We built schools here and we built schools there and we built schools all over the place. But talk about what is happening in those schools. We had the famous St. Gabriel's Nursery, the big show with St. Gabriel's Nursery. And if you saw where the door was, there was a door there with no stairway. So I don't know how the children are getting out there. You know, the flooring there was poor construction was done there, mixing of the sand and the cement. So a whole lot of dust. And then you had to come now to, rather than, they couldn't get the floor tiled in time for the reopening because everything is about a rush and to show what we can do. So they had to, after the teachers complained, and I went there and I got the entire place videoed and showed it up on Facebook. Then they went there to hurriedly, they went to put vinyl on the flooring. You know, and so we don't take time to do anything now. It's all about a hurry up. And no wonder our roads are breaking up. No wonder our school buildings, they got to go and do 3 and 4 times. They got to go and redo work there. And no wonder some of our schools that are supposed to be completed, they can't be completed. We got the
Right.
Bamia Primary School. We got North Rumfeld Multilateral School that is 8 months behind schedule. But you know what? We give all of these contracts to friends, foes, families, and favorites who don't have a know-how with regards to construction. But these contracts are given and then they're subcontracted, and you have 2 and 3 contractors working on the same building. So we must have problems, and that's the state of education as we speak. And
Right.
I'm sure
Thank you.
coming out of the GTU's issue, we have seen so many other issues, because just the other day we had the expansion of the University of Guyana board. Well, that's going to be another story for discussion.
It's really good. And I must say again, thank you so much. I could sit and just allow you to speak at length, Madam Member of Parliament, because you really are one who has great responsibilities and you certainly take them seriously. I can see the manner in which you function. And I do echo Brother Jenna that you represent a very, very courageous woman in reference to that. And it's just sad that some men couldn't stand the way you do, or for as long as you'd have done.
Mhm.
And I hold that very seriously, because I don't believe the men should be weak people at any time point in life. But we must have another discussion, or a few more discussions,
Mhm.
because the course on which this nation has found itself is very, very critical. And I believe that the trade unions, who would have been the cause of us having a political culture as we would have had over the years, the trade unions will play a very critical role in steering this nation back on course,
Yeah.
because you represent the working class. You are so critical and so vital to our existence as a nation. And so let me say thank you on behalf of the People's Movement. Thank you for being here, because we believe we must have discussions of this nature. And again, I say to those in the PVP or wherever you are free. As always, you're invited. Just accept the invitation and we'll sit here and have discussions with you. And I would love to see how it goes if you can sit with Coretta, for example, with Madam Member of Parliament. And let's have a discussion. All right. So thanks to you, Brother Jenna. You all do well. Until we meet again, thank you very, very much. And thank you for taking time out from this.
Thank you so much, Nigel. But I must remind all that I'm a teacher. And so when I speak from a position of knowledge. I know what happens in the schools. I've been in the school system for many, many years. I've had my own trials in the school system. So I understand what teachers go through when they stand in front of those classrooms, when you have to give out of the little that you're receiving, when you have to give children a bus fare or buy a lunch or buy something else for a child. I understand what it feels like. I also understand what it feels like to have crowded classrooms, not to have the correct resource materials to work with. I understand when the roof is leaking and you have to pull the furniture to one
Yeah.
side of the classroom. So when I speak and people want to take it in their own way to talk about it being politics and politics, then they must be able to say, I sat in the classroom, I marked 35 maths books, I marked 35 composition papers, I sat there and I assisted students, and to be a teacher, you have to be a people's person, not a politician. And so when the politicians jumping off and doing all kind of foolishness out there, and that's why they have a difficulty with me, because they can't relate to the people. They feel that bribing people is the way to go, but you must be able to sit in the people's shoe, sit at the road corners with them, go
Right.
and sit in their
Right.
houses and find out what is happening with them. Then you can speak, and that's the advantage that I have over quite a lot of them. and,
Thanks
and, and
again.
I'm not
Thank you.
deterred by any of the names they call me. I don't
Right.
feel any way. My skin is
Good.
as thick as that of what, turtle, hippopotamus, whoever.
All
So
right.
that falls off. It doesn't bother me. One of my female counterparts in parliament said to me the other day, Coretta, you're an embarrassment to women. I said, well, I'm just following in your footsteps. And that was Madam Gail Teixeira. She forgot when Barra Jagdio did all kinds of things to women, and she couldn't say, mm. She forgot when Dharam Lal was out there and the damning allegation that was against him, and not even Gail Teixeira
Right. Not even
had
her.
the gumption to say, But these people they've outlived their usefulness as far as I'm concerned. But
I
you
do
know
agree.
what? The perks keep them where they are.
Thanks again. Thanks again.
You're so
Thanks again.
welcome. Have
And
a
I
good
hope that
one.
we'll be able to engage you very soon.
Anytime.
Spare us a few moments of your time yet again. Thank you so much and do
Thank
well.
you.
And
Have a good
thank you.
one. Bye
Do the
bye.
same. So we have, you would have heard for yourself, Dave, the member of parliament and uh, one who is serving as the general secretary of the Guyana Teachers Union. I do reiterate that trade unions play a very important role in Guyana's history. And the Guyana Teachers Union would be recorded in history as one who has stood resolutely, confidently, and consistently in reference to their membership, being willing to resist and to fight against every form of oppression against the working class. As a result of that, I would encourage every other trade union in this country who understands and is fair-minded. You understand the cause. Let us please join forces with the Guyana Teachers Union to fight for the right of the working class across this nation. With that said, do well, and thank you so much for being here with us. I do look forward to meeting you again in the not too distant future. Again, to our guests, thank you for being here. Do well until we meet again.